and welcome back here at feelingTERrific. Today I have a very special guest with me because I hired him into ServiceNow, and I'm very happy that he's still smiling, so I didn't do something wrong here. But later on, more to that, I think. So I have with me Thorsten Maeding. So Thorsten, if you allow me, I will make a short intro about you. But the first question is obviously to you, so that you can tell us who you are. But maybe to make it short, you are digital transformation advisor at ServiceNow. But what this is all about, and also who are you? Please enlighten us. Over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Christian. Thank you for being here. Very happy to be part of that podcast. I will keep it simple. Who am I? I'm just a normal guy working for ServiceNow, helping our customers to be to have the best solutions, helping us to push our platform to our customers, and looking forward for the interview today.
Great. And you missed a very important part, Thorsten. Who are you on a personal side?
On a personal side, again, a normal guy trying to strive and survive. Thinking, I think I'm the guy who, like everyone, right? Searching, really survive that life, really trying to keep up to speed with all the things, trying to grow. So from a personal point of view, I love to enjoy my life, trying to visit a lot of countries, trying to get to know a lot of cultures. And at the same time, trying to, enjoy my time with a lot of interesting pieces. Maybe one thing, what not many people know about me, I love to play computer games.
Which one?
Quite a lot.
Which is your favorite?
I spend a lot of time. GTA. GTA is normally my favorite one. And whenever a new GTA comes out, you won't see me for hours. So...
So the favorite country is then also the US, or what is your favorite country?
It's actually an interesting question, because when I was younger, it was definitely US. I always wanted to be in the US. In the meanwhile, where I got to know so many cultures, there is no favorite anyone. I can tell you what is the next one on my bucket list is Japan. I want to go to Japan as on my bucket list. I want to see something completely different. Right, which I haven't seen yet. And I think you got a little bit of a culture shock. You cannot read anything anymore. You cannot really understand the culture from the beginning. So I will be a little bit lost, and I love those kind of things in new cultures.
Isn't it always great to be challenged and to grow and get a different mind? So
it's always nice to have an open mindset, right? And to be open to walk through this world with open eyes and really see what others have to offer you, and what others really show you, because you can grow, you can learn from others the most, I think.
Yeah, maybe let us add on it and tell the audience what we will talk about today. Obviously, there is quite a wide range of topics, but among them, and what is quite interesting, as it is, I would say, quite unusual, to go from a management position to an individual contributor one. So this might not be your not the end for you from a career perspective, but what does career mean, right? So maybe let's dive straight into it. And before we are going into this one, you also worked in Asia, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? Why did you work in Asia, and how did this experience shape you as a person, basically?
So actually, I would need to start a little bit earlier, because it didn't start in Asia, right? So I actually, when I was younger, I told you just right now, I always wanted to go abroad. I always wanted to go to the US. Yeah, that's cool. That's nice. And then when I was 25, I had the opportunity to move to Czech Republic, to Prague. And as you can imagine, so I packed my stuff with some areas, went over by car, had all my belongings with me. And it was supposed to be 1 year. In the end, it was 10 years I stayed there in Prague. And I really had there the chance to work in an international environment, to really see more and more in the world. I started in 2015, 2016 as well, with a lot of business trips around the world. And I had to go to Asia, I had to go to Costa Rica. And whenever I went to Asia, Kuala Lumpur, right? This is where I was staying. I came back pumped. I had so much inspiration, so much energy in me. I really felt good. So I went to my boss one day and said, "Hey, wouldn't it be nice that I stay a little bit longer in Asia?" And over time, there was an opportunity to say, "Hey, do you want to lead the service desk over there?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. Let me try. Let me do it." And then I packed my stuff again. I had 3 bags, and I went to Asia for 2 years. Unfortunately, COVID was striking, so I couldn't really have that Asian feeling and exposure as I would have. But I love the culture. I love the food in Asia, and the way how it shaped me, I would say it's mainly it humbled me quite a lot, because sometimes, especially here in Europe, we have the feeling it's, we know everything, we do everything, the best. And then, no, it's not the case. Try really to listen to other cultures, see how they do things, see how they approach things. And if I wouldn't have done that, I would have been lost, because all my business customers, they were also Asian, right? And if I would try my Western approach, so to speak, it wouldn't have worked. So I really had to observe. I really had to understand different cultures, and I really have to understand the people over there. I would say in some cases it worked pretty well. In other cases, I for sure failed as well. But I really appreciated my time there. And to get to know really the culture, that people opened their living rooms for me, right? Invited me for their private dinners. And it was really a nice time, even through COVID.
Yeah. No, I'm really curious, I mean, you just mentioned it. So you were invited, for example, into living rooms, right? So obviously a different kind of approach, a different culture, right? How or what did you took away from it with you, what you implemented then here as well when you came back and working here again?
I think one of the main things was listening, active listening, because you have much, much more introverts living in Asia, especially when you are from a foreign country. They are very hierarchical, and whatever the boss says is that what counts. Very often is logic or not logic. So you really have to listen. You really have to understand more than you would do in Europe, because otherwise you wouldn't get those nuances, right? You wouldn't understand if someone is feeling not happy, if someone is not really okay with that, what you just said, or sometimes even if it makes sense what you just said, right? So really try to active listening, getting active feedback from people, really asking for feedback, having a conversation longer, giving people the feeling to be able to speak up, right? That was something I really had to learn, and it really helped me that mostly very, very smart people are the silent ones in the room, and you have to see who are the silent one and give them the stage, because they have really smart things to say very often.
Yeah, no, I really love this, empathy piece, I would also say, right? And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think to summarize it, kind of what you just said is also having the ability to stay grounded and having this as a basis, then moving forward, right? Regarding the culture, the openness, providing a framework where the others feel safe and want to speak up, right? So I think having this ability, besides you might be a leader or not, it doesn't matter, but providing this is a really great thing.
I mean, I had the chance, really. That was maybe a little story what happened there throughout COVID, right? Where it didn't hit me as much as maybe other people. When you're in an environment and you got the local news there, that through COVID, there was a lot of people who was working in the hotel industry, taxi drivers, very based on tourism, right? And more or less, they all got fired. And there was then an initiative that were called the White Flag. So people who didn't even have food anymore, they hanged out white flags on their apartments, right? And then when I was looking at German news, where they're all mean, right? People felt a little bit, oh, we have problems here, we have problems there. it really grounded you because you were in an environment where people even didn't have food anymore, right? And you were sitting in a beautiful, nice building, ordering nice food, watching a nice movie. So I felt pretty well, even COVID was around and I couldn't do whatever I do. So that grounds you very quick to reality where things are happening, right?
Yeah. Would you say that this experience also did have an impact on your leadership style or on your thinking regarding leadership per se?
Yes, because when you have people in your teams who are not in the same culture as you, and you feel in a certain way shocked and helpless because you can't do anything really except being empathetic and empathetic, no, being showing empathy and really making sure that you try to help wherever you can, right? Throughout COVID, we had a lot of people, mainly women, because Kuala Lumpur is a Muslim country, right, who needed to take care of a full-time job, needed to take care about their husbands because apparently they couldn't cook their own food, and the kids were around, right? And then you had young mothers on the phone telling you how overwhelming everything is. And then you cannot come around and tell them, oh, by the way, your KPI is not pretty well, right? So you somehow need to try different methods to rather help and support than to make your typical standard leadership style. Hey, we need to do that. We need to do that. It's getting much, much more deeper into people's life. And I'm happy that happy in some brackets because I'm happy that I could lead people through that tough times and could help several people to get through those times. And sometimes in those times as a leader, you have to close your eyes and get through it, right? Rather than always showing the business as first place. No, your people are the first place, right?
Yeah. And at least in my experience, when people are being treated as the first place, the business will come out kind of automatically. So
That's
it's
correct,
not the best choice to invest in people and their health and so on.
Yeah.
Maybe let's go to a different topic, Thorsten, to intrinsic motivation. So what I understood when you talked in the beginning about going abroad, right, and getting new experiences and so on, I would say intrinsic motivation was kind of a part, right, or played a big part. Can you tell us what does mean intrinsic motivation to you?
I think when you are able as a human being to find out what really motivates you, what really drives you, right? It's much, much easier. I would say I've not found mine to 100% because it's also sometimes changing, but it's curiosity. It's in a certain way, I like responsibility to take over the lead. And if I get opportunities like that, and if I'm seeing even doing things like that, going abroad, play a vital role to changing organizations, changing people's life, it's sometimes much, much more better to help even other people to grow. It's a really nice thing, but then it's always changing left and right a little bit. So I think you have to go with the flow, what suits you, what feels right in the right moment, and where do you want to grow in, right? And what do you want to do next? And sometimes it's short projects which make you feel satisfied. Sometimes it's a longer term assignment you have which feels you satisfied and where you can show your capabilities and really show that you have an influence to people, right? And to an influence around you. That makes me a lot of pleasure to do such things. And I'm happy that I can show those capabilities wherever I am so far.
Yeah, maybe let's add a different topic or perspective to this what we just talked about, right? So I mean, I think I can say it. So we were having lunch today, and we talked about attitude, and then you told me that you read the questions, and attitude is something special for you. Maybe you can enlighten us. What do you mean by that?
I wouldn't call it something special, but I think, when I hear the word attitude, I feel directly in a negative way because you say sometimes, oh, that person brings an attitude to that meeting, or that person brings an attitude here and there. So I'm trying to avoid words like that, and rather trying it's a mindset you bring on the table, right? It's a certain way how you're thinking about stuff, and maybe you ask the rest of the question. I think attitude suits there in the end, but again, it's the mindset you bring onto the table rather than bringing an attitude to something, right? Because I believe attitude doesn't bring you further.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting because usually when I ask this question, right, the answer obviously depends on the experience from the other person in regards to this word, right?
Yeah.
So maybe let me change it then. So what role does the mindset play in dealing with prejudices?
Um, yeah, I think it's really clear that we need to change very often the way how we think about certain biases today, right? Um, I was really, really lucky to be able to be that open, to have to match so many different cultures, so many different areas. People couldn't speak English. It doesn't still matter that I don't do a good job in certain areas, right? Actually, the funny way is I just caught myself the other day. I was in one of our offices in Frankfurt, and I was seeing a guy coming with short trousers to work. And I catched myself in that thing. Oh, he couldn't be a professional because he wears short trousers to work. What the hell? Right? And I catched myself with that thought, and I said, one moment. What really does it change? The guy didn't change at all, right? He got probably hired because he's a professional person. His customer even don't see him because he's only on camera today, and you don't see anything if he wears that or not. It's just me who thought that right now, right? And I think every day we need to keep thinking of, am I biased here? Am I really having that kind of, judgment in a certain way about the person? Is it the right one? Is it the wrong one? And but we also shouldn't be afraid sometimes to admit it that we have a bias because we got all raised in certain societies. We got all raised with certain backgrounds, right? And sometimes what I don't like, what happens that when someone has a bias, we directly say, "Oh my God, what a horrible person." No, understand that person as well, right? And I think just reflect, give feedback, and I think then a good along together, all together, living on that planet works quite well. But be always open. That's the one thing. Listen, be open, get the feedback, and don't put it away and say, nah, you think wrong about it. No, that person might have a point, right? Think about it really.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. Take it, self-reflect, being self-aware. I think this is a very good point. Um, Maybe coming to yeah, I see management. I see maybe maybe let's start differently. When and how did you start your professional career?
It started all 2015. Um, I was working pretty much all my life to be a project manager. That was my dream role after my studies. So like, yeah, I want to be one day a project manager. So one day I got it, and I was
Congrats.
really thank you. I was really happy about it. And then my boss came around and said, "Hey, don't you want to lead a team?" And I said, "No, no, no, no. I don't want that. I'm a project manager. That's always what I wanted." And somehow he worked on me and with me another year. And in the end, I said yes, because I think it was an opportunity which brings me forward, which brings me to the next thing. It made sense. It felt good then. Yeah, I took the opportunity. I actually did not make a typical career going from an individual contributor to a team lead to a manager. I really started through and directly actually managed team leads. Um, and it was quite a ride, but I enjoyed it really much. It was a good decision I did.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, how was it looking like when he worked on you and with you for 1 year, and how when you just talked about it did make sense. What do you mean by that? Do you feel it? Is it a light which comes up, or?
So I think it's a lot of dialogues, right? You really start to ask more questions. You really start to think about what it would be. I mean, you start your imagination, right? You start what's the advantages, the disadvantages. You speak with a lot of people, and more you do that, the clearer the picture gets. And at a certain moment, you see, yeah, let's say the light, as you just mentioned it, right? And you just have this, I don't know, I would call it even a gut feeling to say, yeah, that's it. Let's do it now, right? It's also need to be the right moment, right? And you also need to have a certain confidence because sometimes as well, people get into roles and you know that they fail, right? And if you have someone next to you, if you have a mentor, if you have someone who really takes care about you as well, and I was really lucky to have that person, you get this confidence. Hey, you do something which is the right step at the right time, and that person doesn't let you go through the loops, but he really makes sure that you get into that role and get quite mature and confident in that.
Yeah. How were you perceived by the team leads you were managing right away? I mean, as you mentioned, it's quite unusual that you move from an individual contributor role to a manager role, and then it's
Mm.
kind of a second line role, isn't it? How were you perceived?
So I think if you would ask my team leads, there were up and downs for sure to that time. Um, it's also a learning process, right? You're not there the first day. You have to um, look after areas which certain certain biases come towards you, right? In certain ways, I was younger than some of the people. Other people were much more hands-on to that time than I am, right? So I think what really saved me in the end is I knew my business very well. I really understood how customer service works in an IT area, right? Service desk. I knew how what was needed. I knew how to come there, and I had a strong support throughout the organization, and that really helped me to change that mindset, to change the way of perceiving stuff. And in the end, it was quite, I would say, quite successful. So I really liked the way then in the end how it worked out. Mm. But it's a journey. It's a journey. It's not you're there one day and everything is good, right?
Yeah. No,
Trust is a key word here.
I believe that the trust was not there from the beginning, right?
Mm.
So you earned it through your competency in the areas you just mentioned. I also believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that the whole journey you talked about like that was also quite. When you talk about journey and learning, I assume there's also a mental roller coaster. Do you agree?
So I
How
had
was it for
times
you?
where, yeah, so I had times where I want to give up. That's for sure,
And how did you
right?
overcome them?
Um, when you're down, I think you need to really start thinking about it, self-reflect about it. So if you got feedback which really hits your heart and really puts you down to a certain way, you really need to start thinking about it because there's a reason for why you got that feedback, right? Don't react directly. Start really to look in other people as well. Do they see similar things? Ask questions around and start then to, yeah, to work. It's a self. way how you process it, a week, 2 weeks, it's in you. And at a certain moment, you need to get up. Yeah, right. You need to stand up. It doesn't help. You really need to move forward. So take it really as a learning and try to see what you want to do better. And it's similar with change process, right? That's more like a process we all know, but it's an inner change process for you, right? It's first the denial phase you went through. No, what this guy said, it cannot be right. But then it comes to acceptance. Then it comes to let me participate it, and you get stronger out of it, right? But it's a process, and depending how tough the feedback was, or the roller coaster and how deep you there, the longer it might take you.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of the tenure of the toughest feedback you did get? How long did it take you? But also
I
maybe how did you come out of it stronger?
Mm. So I think the longest I needed was really 2 weeks, where people did not understand what I want and what I meant by certain things and how I wanted to steer the organization. Um, and there was actually anonymous feedback given. The company I worked, they did several times some employee opinion survey, right? And based on this employee opinion survey, there was then further interview questions by an anonymous moderator who went around. And the feedback I got there was pretty tough coming back to me, and it really took me a while to read it. And I think without people, conversations, and looking at things from different angle, right? Speaking with opposites of who you are, right? Speaking with people who think totally different than you are, speaking with them, trying to reiterate, hey, what have you done? How do you see things? How do you see me here, there? Right? Speaking to peers, speaking to managers. And that sometimes gives you the area, but then also you need to think, hey, you got in this position for a reason. Not just because you were there, so there was no one else. No, someone trusted in you, and someone you showed you have these capabilities. So take those little strings and then put them back together and stand up again. And really, as we just mentioned, learn from your feedback. I love feedback. I live with feedback, right? I like to give feedback, but I also like that people give me feedback because I just can learn from it. And sometimes it hurts, and sometimes it's okay, and it's good that we have it.
Yeah, no, I really like what you just said, and also when it comes to maybe let me add also perspective from my side because it adds quite well on what you just said. So basically, I mean, you are also at ServiceNow. You know what I mean when I say it's also mentally roller coaster at ServiceNow, in a positive way. And I had mine down a few weeks or months ago, right?
Mm.
And it was longer than 2 weeks. And what also helped me was when someone told me you were hired for a reason. And basically, it's quite a simple sentence, right? But
Mm.
when it meant with the genuine, then it really can shape the world. And I'm glad that it did for me, and I'm glad that I got out of it. So this is a really really powerful message.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. Definitely. It's again, there are people who trust in you. You will feel the signs or you will see the signs if people really start thinking about your competencies and if people don't see you in a certain role anymore, you will feel that much, much stronger than getting feedback because feedback is something we should appreciate, right? Feedback is actually something people like you, they want you to grow. And that's why they give you feedback, right? That you get better. And yeah, but honesty can be sometimes very brutal. I agree with that.
Yeah, no, but we are glad that we get it. I'm totally with you here. Um, Another thing, So obviously, not just the roles from you changed, right? So from an individual contributor to a management, and then again to an individual contributor one, but also the titles. But what do you think about titles?
You introduced me with the title of Digital Transformation Advisor. That's not my internal title. That's my LinkedIn title. My internal title is Advisory Solution Consultant. Yeah. I think it's advisory. Yeah, it's advisory. Um, I, if you see my role before, I have on LinkedIn, Head of ServiceDesk, Asia. My actually role or title was a director role, right? But you're not putting every little thing in there. I think it's important that people get the sense of who you are in certain areas. So you need to find something what describes you best in that moment. It can be internally, externally, sometimes differently. Um, a title in the end, the only thing what it can give you here and there, if other people look at it, it gives you a certain respect. That's the only thing. It's very interesting. I had a funny conversation. I was a service desk leader and we had an escalation. And it was someone in Germany who escalated some tickets where they were not happy about, right? And I called the guy up and I just said my name. I spoke in German for sure, and but I just said I'm Thorsten from the service desk, and I asked certain questions, and you could really hear through the phone how this guy looked me up. And the moment he saw who I am from a title point of view, he changed his way of talking to me. And I'm like, you little yeah. It's very interesting how people still look at that. I think in a modern world they don't count anyone. Everyone can be CEO of that little startup these days, right? So it's more what you bring on the table than a certain title.
Yeah. So at ServiceNow, you are an NIC again, right?
Mhm.
Maybe if you can provide us the perspective or the thought process why it did make sense to you to take this individual contributor one at ServiceNow.
So I was at a point of my career where I thought I'm done with service desk. I've done this job over 17 years in all kind of roles you can imagine, from a service desk agent picking up the phone, how can I help you, to leading an organization of a service desk with 150 people, right? In between project management for service desk, reporting for service desk, everything around it. So I came to this point, it's done. Now, and we spoke at lunch about this as well in a certain way, right? For me, a career is not always a career path. You're not walking a line. Sometimes you have to say, oh, I'm going left and right, and that's it, right? And then you're moving and moving, and the best way, always up, right? Always up to the next level and so on. But if you're thinking about it rather, again, as a picture, as a mosaic, right? I'm not sure there's those games sometimes, those game shows where they have a mosaic which is really blurry and it got sharper and sharper and sharper. And this is more or less how I see my career, right? And you try always to put little skills, little capabilities to it. And I always had the kind of want in me to do something sales related. And there was this call. I got the opportunity, right? We had several conversations when you hired me, right? And I was really happy that I didn't need to start somewhere in an area of from zero, but I could more or less go in at a point where it made sense for me. And here I'm adding another piece, another capability. I'm learning every day in a certain way today. And sometimes you need to get your ego out of the way. When once you're a leader, doesn't mean you're always your life a leader, right? And you can be a leader not only by hierarchy, right? You can be a leader also by just an individual contributor, right? Leading through project, leading your team, leading your environment which is around you. So uh, it just again, felt right at the right moment. It's something I wanted to do. It fitted to that time in my mosaic. It was the next piece I want to put in there and put me into a broader skill set to build, right?
How long did it take you to make the decision? Were there any fears? How did you overcome them? How was it for you? I mean, going from a kind of known environment into a totally new one. How was that?
I knew ServiceNow quite well. I know ServiceNow since 2011, right? I was a customer of ServiceNow. So I knew the company. And to be fair, it took me 5 minutes. There was this one sentence who one of my colleagues today said to me, who also referred me, Ryan, and he said more or less, could you imagine to do something completely else? And there was a moment I said, yes, for sure I can. So why not? And that was more or less the decision made. It came a little bit rational, left and right after it, right? But from an emotional point of view, that was the decision. And then you just checked, what is this? What is really happening? What is really? And it all made then checkbox, and it was done, right? So, but the thing was really that one question, and yes, for sure I can imagine. Why not? Let's do it.
And you're still smiling. That's also a good sign.
I'm still happy. I didn't regret the decision. I have to also admit, I'm in a position, Christian, where I don't have family. I'm not bound in a certain location. I can take that steps. Maybe if I would have a partner, a family, a wife, it would be harder for me to make such decision because you're not only responsible for yourself very often, right? And you need to make decisions much more strategic. But I always learned, even if I don't like something, you can change it, right? No decision is made forever. There are things you can change. So it's also a little bit easier for me sometimes than for other people.
Are you challenged in your current role?
Sure. It's a completely new thing I'm learning, right? I'm having quite good business knowledge how operations work. I have no clue how sales works. I have, in the meanwhile, after a year, a good idea how pre-sales works. But every day there's something new where I got back and said, I wish I would have known that before.
Did you
So,
expect that?
Yes, I did. And I think if you would speak to my leader, uh, I speak very often about I want to learn more about how this whole sales piece works, and I'm so happy that I can be part of it and that I really get involved into that things as well. And it's interesting because what we do as society or as human beings, we always need to put a framework around it, right? You have the IT environment, so the framework is ITIL next to it. You have sales, so you need to put another framework around it, right? We have the sales. Oh my God, now I forgot that one. SalesNow. Is it SalesNow? It's SalesNow. So another framework. So you need to continue learning those pieces, right? So it keeps you to help you a little bit of a way forward. But you also, it's not only you have to learn it, but you also have to adapt it and use it. And that's experience, which comes over time, right? And I'm happy that I can really move into those directions and learn every day new stuff.
Would you say that your management history helps you to deliver or to grow in your current role?
Yes, because it's easier to deal with your team, with your peers, because you know how certain things work different, right? You look from it from a leadership angle as well. You prepare differently for conversations because you've done tough conversations before, you have good conversations before. Um, you, yeah, yeah, the way how you look at things start to change in general, because you're not only looking from this one angle of work to it, right? What we used mainly as an individual contributor, anything else, it wasn't that big for you. You always looked at this one piece you were working on. And when you're once a leader, you start from all angles on it. What does it mean from a money point of view? What does it mean from a people point of view? What does it mean from a business delivery point of view, right? And you always have those three angles in your head, and everything you're looking at is those three angles. And especially in a pre-sales role, right? When you're talking to your customer, okay, so what does it mean for his people? What does it mean for his budget? What does it mean for his business delivery? So those kind of thinking helps you a little bit because you know kind of know how the people think you want to sell your product to, right?
Yeah. I'm wondering, how did you think about win as a team during your management role or management history? And did it change through your individual contributor experience now?
Um, it was easier as a manager sometimes to say win as a team and as a leader, right? Because you were defining what it means. You were setting the scene, you were setting the environment. So it was a little bit more, um, yeah, controlled is maybe the right word, right? Because you had it in your hands. You were the one responsible for it. You needed to make sure it happens. As an IC, I sometimes feel lost because you cannot set it anymore as much, right? Um, it doesn't mean that you're not responsible for it or that you are not cannot influence. You can, right? Especially in ServiceNow, it's very open. It's a very open culture. Nevertheless, is it's not always your role anymore to do so, right? There's someone else who wants to do that, and then you cannot both set the scene for winning as a team or the environment set up, right? There can be only one in the end who's doing that, and you just can play your role. So sometimes I felt helpless in certain moments where I scratched on something, so you had to let it go and say, no, it's someone else's role this time.
So I think, yeah, the last question from my side regarding our conversation today. I think everyone also has this question on their mind. Would you do this move or change again?
Yes, I would do it again. There was one person in my whole network who were asking a strange question around it. How could you do that? From a manager to a solution consultant. How could you do that? There was one person. Everyone else looked at me as well, so got perceived that it is the right step. And for me, as I mentioned before, it really fitted into my picture. I always wanted to do something with sales in my life, but to change the career totally is also not an easy thing. So I was really happy about that area. And again, just because you're moving away to an IC and moving to a manager role and then back to an IC, it's not a failure. It's just a different start, right? And then from there, you can move again up to a manager role if you want, right? If you have enough experience, if you have enough skills, and it will always help you throughout your career that you had make this, that you created that environment and capabilities for you, right?
Yeah. No, just a different skill set, as you mentioned, which will be helpful for you in the future.
Correct.
Perfect. No, but one question I still have, and this is promise the last one. Self-awareness, self-reflection, mental health, recharging, purpose. Buzzword bingo or what?
Sometimes it feels like that. But I think all of them have um, a need. So I'm totally for self-reflection. I do it every day. I practice this every day, 10 minutes. thinking about what happened today. I believe definitely into mental health. These days, it's getting tougher and tougher out there. It's the other way around. You sometimes need to chill and relax than thinking about your next growing opportunity. It's very needed to come back to our headspace, right? Because it's faster, 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 and we sometimes forget to think, and it's needed that we take the time to think to do a good job. And purpose is always bringing me to something very interesting, right? And it comes back to this one um, big area where in a management book was written one day a NASA boss came into the rocket ship hall, and there was a guy who was cleaning the hangar, right? And he asked him, "So, what are you doing here?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm helping to bring those spaceships up into the air, right?" I think it's a myth, actually. I heard that as well in the meanwhile. Um, but I think we all want to help people these days. We all want to do this world a better place to be. And all the companies have purpose today. And sometimes you don't have to understand the purpose as long you understand your purpose, why you are there. And when you understand your purpose for yourself, I think it takes you out sometimes of this just doing a job to, yeah, I like to do my job, right? What I'm doing. And I think it's not so much of bingo, business bingo. I think it helps. Just we need to have more good leaders who speak in a good way about it and not just making a checklist on it, right? I delivered the purpose. That's it. And done. And that's not very authentic. And that makes it sometimes feel a little bit phony.
We are at the end of our conversation, Thorsten. Thank you for sharing, especially also at the end, your thoughts on it, but also for the whole conversation and the whole different perspectives. It was a great pleasure talking to you. And maybe over to you for the last words.
Yeah, I think my last words would go in a little bit of a direction. I mean, in the end, you're a recruiter, right? And it's a lot about careers. Um, I can just give everyone the advice from a career point of view. Don't get too much about it. Try to really look what feels best to you. Try not to get stuck. I think that is an important piece, but also look left and right. It doesn't mean that when you go left and right that you're always being a failure and that what you do. So really try to keep up with it. Be open-minded. And one really nice guy I like a lot, who was my mentor for a long time in my career, said one thing is say yes to the opportunity and take the opportunity. And that is, I think I can advise everyone else as well.
And we leave it by that. So thanks, Thorsten, and hope to see you soon again.
Thank you. Have a nice one. Bye bye.